This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello and welcome to Your Soccer Passport, and guess what? It's World Cup edition again! Yay!
Woo!
Brice,
Bonjour!
Bonjour is definitely needed. That's Ivan Sanchez Carrasco saying that, using his entire vocabulary in French to say hello to you guys. We're going to be talking about the Women's World Cup here. It's a big deal, obviously, and we want to make sure that we try to give as much attention to the Women's World Cup as we did for the Men's World Cup. So let's just go straight into it. We're going to go group by group and just kind of see how this episodes go. We'll start off with the first group. In Group A, it is France, South Korea, Norway, and Nigeria. A lot of interesting storylines because, first of all, the number one team in Group A is always the host squad in France, and France looks to be one of the favorites in this tournament this year. What do you think about the French team, Ivan?
France, I have them probably one of my top 5 teams in the World Cup entering right now. Host nation, they've gotten some really good results, and they have some good consistency going. And the good thing is, it looks like the country's really backing them up in this World Cup. They're going to have a lot of support, and I think it puts them in a really nice situation in a pretty tricky group, to be honest with you. I like Group A as one of probably 2 of the hardest groups out of the 6. Along with France, you have South Korea, you have Norway, who is missing their best player and the best player in the world, but still have some nice firepower, and Nigeria, who's probably the best African team of them all.
In Nigeria, that's one of the other storylines here because you kind of touched on each one of them very well. Let's actually talk about Nigeria for a little bit because Nigeria has been to the last 8 Women's World Cups and only gotten out of group stage twice, and they're widely considered the best women's team in Africa consistently. Also representing Africa at this World Cup is South Africa as well as Cameroon. But really when it comes down to this, I'm not sure if the best team in Africa really has the best chance of moving on. And that all kind of comes down to what Nigeria is looking at. They've got Asiat Osohola. She's a really good, solid player that can move the ball properly, but their goaltending is a little off, and their back defense seems to not be up for international play when they start playing the European teams compared to the African opponents that they have. For me, this Nigerian team, you don't want to relegate them to worst in the group right away, but it's hard not to.
Yeah, I think they're going to struggle, especially with the quality France is going to have and the way France kind of is able to control the game and attack at the same time, kind of have this constant pressure that's going to throw at Nigeria. And you also have a Norway team who is a good quality, who has a lot of good quality to them. I believe they finished second in Euros. I could be wrong, but even with missing their best player, they have a lot of quality players, and they look like they are setting themselves up. They should set themselves up nicely to battle France for second or for first place in the group, to be honest with you. And then you have South Korea, who probably might be the second best team in Asia. I don't think they're ahead of Japan, but they could be battling right there with China for the second best team in Asia. And they're going to come with quality. They're going to come in with some with discipline, and it sets up for an interesting, at least a very interesting group.
It does, and South Korea is. I don't know how I feel about South Korea yet because they've beaten New Zealand and then gotten blown out by Australia. They've beaten they lost to Sweden and then they split with Iceland in a home and home there, or 2 games in South Korea really. And I look at this whole scenario right now. They ended up finishing 3rd place in the Asian Games, but I haven't really been impressed by anything that they've done besides that 5-0 whooping of Argentina. And this is a squad that, when you're looking at possibilities of which teams could get starstruck on the big stage and just flop, I think South Korea is that team for this tournament where they could just get, they should probably have at least a draw in one of these games, but I think they might just have be wiped all over the pitch with the way they're kind of coming about this kind of scenario right now.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing about this World Cup is that it's 6 groups, so you get the top 2 of each group, and then you have the 4th best 3rd place finishers. So this looks like a group where I think you have one of the 4 3rd place teams come out, and I think that's the battle in the second group, in the second day of group play between Nigeria and South Korea is going to be huge. I think the winner of that game puts themselves in a good position to at least make it to the knockout stage, considering neither of them are showstoppers or probably maybe they're not in that like elite top 10 teams entering this World Cup, but they are not they're not one of the bottom teams in the world, one of the bottom 5 teams in the world. So this puts an interesting game for the second one to see if they can put themselves in a good position to finish 4th or finish 3rd in their group and put themselves into that knockout stage.
And Norway is always kind of a rough situation to talk about. We've talked about Norway and Ada Hegerberg in some pretty lengthy discussions in past episodes. And, she's not playing. And you guys are getting to this level here with France in this same group. Norway, I think, is the very clear-cut second-best team in this group. But ultimately, when you're looking at things like goal differential or making sure that you don't drop a draw or a late game goal or something like that, something like that could really burn Norway right now. What really is the goal for Norway in this opening round? Is it to actually compete with France to win the round or win the group, or is it more of just make sure that you can advance and fight another day?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because I think Nigeria might give Norway a hard time in the first game because of their speed and their size, and missing somebody like Ada Hamburg is huge because she is the reigning Ballon d'Or player. She just finished winning another Champions League with Lyon in the Euro Champions League for the women's side. So that's a huge hole to fill, and I think if you put that in any other, if you would think about it for people who don't follow women's soccer that much, if you would put that essentially with Messi, kind of if he was missing from Argentina team, what that would give, the huge hole that would fill, even though they have quality players, it's still a huge hole to fill. With that said, I think they are probably second best in this group. And for them, it's you got to get off to a good start against Nigeria. And then in the second game, when the kind of game of the group, France-Norway, you getting that first game kind of puts you in a better mental state in the second game, saying like, hey, we can get a result, we can get a tie, maybe we can even sneak a win, but it's not necessary and it's not mandatory. So it all kind of comes down for them in that first game against Nigeria where they have to get a W.
All right, at this point, rank the group. How do you think they're going to finish?
France first, Norway second. I'm actually going to go Nigeria third and Korea fourth, South Korea.
That's what I have as well.
All right. Well, we're going to see how we're going to fare because we've been bad this year.
Well, you have.
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah.
All right. So,
and I'll say Nigeria gets one of the 4 third place spots as well.
I haven't done the math yet. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think Nigeria would need to have a very impressive goal differential to make that work.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think I see some other groups, and I just think this group has too much talent overall to not have one of them go out. But hey, that's why I usually get things wrong.
All right, so let's bounce to Group B then. Group B has Germany, Spain, South Africa, and China. Again, another good mix, and again, another group where the potential worst team is coming from the African continent. Also, you have another tournament favor who has consistently been there in Germany. What are your initial opinions on this group?
I see it as a little more top heavy than the other one because I think Germany's very good. I think Germany's probably one, two, three best teams in the world entering this World Cup, and they've been one of the more consistent teams entering the World Cup. When you look at the fixtures leading up, a lot of these teams have kind of been playing each other all throughout and lead ups, and they've been the ones getting little constant results. With that said, South Africa has had kind of a similar consistency, but in a negative way, where they've been really struggling entering this World Cup. And China, I'm not sure if they have the experience after missing out in the last couple World Cups. Can they put together a good paper? I'm not sure if they have of the quality that a team like Japan is. And Spain is is my dark horse. We've talked about how much we've enjoyed the Spain Women's Federation and what they've done in the youth levels and what they've kind of been doing little by little on the senior team. So they're kind of they're my darlings of this World Cup entering. So I have high hopes for them entering it. So that's what I see. I found this is the team I'm going to go for is Spain.
Well, for me personally, I think Spain's going to upset Germany and win the group. And I think that because I think that second game between Germany and Spain, I think Germany is going to kind of get caught off guard and end up losing in a tie. Or not losing in a tie, but drawing through 90 minutes, and that's going to have an impact. I really think that Spain will win this because they will have the goals from their first game against South Africa and then be able to knock off Spain at the end, or knock off China at the end and win this group. Germany, I think, is going to be a very good squad, and I think Germany will go further in the tournament in this matchup, but I think that it's going to actually be because they're on the other side of the bracket, and I really like what Germany is doing, but I think Spain is at a better time right now because you have so much influence from the younger squads in Spain. You have so much influence from the experience that they have. It's a different kind of leadership dynamic and a different kind of experience dynamic in terms of winning for Spain. I think that they're going to be able to get a draw, a really impressive draw against Germany and eventually take the top spot. I'm not sure if this is a group that would get somebody out, though, in the third place spot, because I'm not sure how China would react to this. I think China is in a rough spot because even though that they are probably they're one of the best three teams right now in the Asian continent, they are still kind of struggling to move the ball on the outside and really capitalize on some of their strengths, and I'm not sure if that's going to come in time for this World Cup.
Yeah, I think this is one of the groups. I'm bored. Ask me at the end of the show if I think one of these two teams might make it out from the third place. I'm kind of on board with you that I don't think so. I think, but I like that we're kind of on the same board with Spain. But I think Germany's going to win the group. But I think Spain's going to give them a good scare, and I think this is the kind of they'll get a good result or a good game where I think that could propel them later in the knockout stage where they won't fear anybody moving forward. Kind of that they're not going to fear anybody in that upper tier that I kind of think the women's group is kind of split up into.
Rank them top to bottom.
I'm going to go Germany first, Spain second, China third, South Africa fourth, and right now I don't see China being one of the four teams, but ask me at the end.
I think there's a higher probability for China to make it out compared to Nigeria, but I think it's still kind of iffy for me. Just because when you get these groups that are so good, they kind of eat up on themselves anyway, and it kind of negates the tiebreaker aspect. You almost have to really kind of hope to be a mediocre third team in a group compared to a really good team in the best group, because of the way that you'll just kind of eat yourselves alive. So I don't know. I think China's got a higher probability than Nigeria, but that being said, I don't have them moving out either. But at this point, why don't we take a break, kind of recap a little bit, and then we'll go into the next segment talking about Group C and D. Lots of fun storylines there, too. You're listening to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media.
This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
And welcome back to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. I'm Brice Burge. That's Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. This is the World Cup edition, so we'll keep on going through the groups. Let's start with Group C for this segment. Keep it going in order. This is one that's got some heavy influences from the men's side in terms of the country's soccer clout. However, this may go a completely different direction. Australia, Italy, Brazil, and Jamaica make up Group C. This is a really deceivingly good group between what Australia has been able to bring to the table so far, the growth of Brazil with a star player like Marta, Jamaica, which is making its first World Cup and has a lot of good American trained players. Almost every single person on that roster from Jamaica has played collegiate ball in the United States, and Italy is a team that has very silently exceeded expectations in their last couple of tournaments, especially in the Euro qualifying table. So with this group all over the place, what's the number one thing you got to be looking for in Group C?
Man, this is a very interesting group, because I think when the draw first came out, I thought this was going to be a really terrifying group. But then you had, since the draw to now, you have Australia, who fired their coach in a manner that kind of seemed to upset the players. The players didn't seem to back the firing of their coach. So you question kind of where their mind's at, and they've had pretty good results, but not what you expect from Australia. You have Brazil, who does have a fantastic player in Mata, but then they can't buy a result either entering this World Cup. You have Italy, who's a surprise, and then you have Jamaica, who's also a surprise. So I think it leads for an interesting group, and one where before, when the draw first happened, to now, it's more up in the air, and it kind of gives it more intrigue. But I like Australia. I think their overall quality and is too much for the rest of the group. But I think, a team like Jamaica, who do have American collegiate players, American trained players, and they're going there with nothing to lose, can possibly upset one of these teams, or at least give them a good battle. And you're right, Italy has surpassed expectations, and they're almost in that same situation where they have nothing to lose, but they could be a team to really give Brazil or Australia a good run for their money as well, and give them some challenges entering this group stage.
I agree with that. I mean, this was the not who we thought they were group, if there was any other way to describe it. And I really like Australia to win it overall. I think Sam Kerr, there's not another offensive player in that group right now that can really touch her, including Marta, even though that Marta's got a lot of skill to her. But Brazil is a one-trick pony. I actually have them finishing last in the group, and I think that Jamaica will move on as a 3 seed, just because I think there's a possibility for those bottom 3 teams to really kind of flub over each other. But Jamaica, I think, has a better defense than Brazil, and I think Jamaica has, almost a chip on their shoulder a little bit, just to kind of show that they belong there. One of the first Caribbean nations to ever make a Women's World Cup, which is huge in itself. So this is a big one too. They have a lot riding on the reputation, because they are a different type of first. You don't have these types of first very often, and they'll have that to really kind of play into everything that they got. But Italy, man, I want to talk about Italy a little bit more. Italy's almost got that like no-name defense that the Minnesota Vikings had for a while, where you don't see any names that are truly standing out. A couple of them here and there, in different leagues, but this is a team that has won all of its group stage games in the Cyprus Cup extremely well before losing in penalty kicks to North Korea. They have gone two wins and one draw in their 3 friendlies before the World Cup, and they've done a great job in different qualifiers so far, beating Portugal, beating Wales, beating Belgium, drawing with Finland. They only really lost to Spain and Belgium, which are 2 quality teams in their own right. So, I look at this right now, and Italy, I'm not really sure what to make out of them so far, just because Italy is that one wild card for me. But I think that I think they'll eventually take second place in this group.
Funny enough, I also had them in second. I think they're going to struggle. You make good points that they've had quality, or they've built this nice confidence of results. They haven't really played anybody of the elite in those results, but they have been able to get results against teams that are their tier or maybe a tier below, which suits them really well entering this World Cup, I think. And that builds consistency and that builds confidence when you enter this World Cup. I think the problem for them is that they have to open against Australia, and I think they might get a punch in the chin to start that game off. But if they're able to recuperate from that, I think they have a great chance of beating Brazil and beating Jamaica. And so I'm with you on that, with Italy being a surprise and finishing second in the group. So yeah, I have Australia first, Italy second, Brazil third, but with not a lot of confidence, and Jamaica fourth.
Okay, that's pretty much what I have. Just swapping Jamaica and Brazil, and I do think whether it's Jamaica or Brazil, I think they'll make it into the knockout stage. Just because I think this is going to be one that, because there's so many unknowns between Italy, Jamaica, and Brazil, there's an opportunity for the bottom 3 to kind of mix it up instead of just having that one, 3 at the top, like a Group A type scenario. So I think that this is going to be one that either Jamaica or Brazil makes it out of. But I had Australia, Italy, Jamaica, and Brazil.
Yeah, I have Brazil also making it out as one of the third place teams.
Okay. All right. So that's good to know. I'll mark that down. Put these up on social media later. Let's jump over to Group D. This is a fun one. It has a couple of well-known teams, England and Japan. It also has Scotland and Argentina. Scotland is an interesting story, just because you're not really sure how they kind of popped up in this, but the England versus Scotland matchup in the first game of the pool is exceptionally fun-looking. You kind of get that United Kingdom aspect going. And I'm excited to see if somebody like a Kim Little can really kind of surprise some other people and really kind of, get things going for Scotland's way. What have you liked about Scotland so far?
I mean, I like the fact that they've played teams like Canada pretty well, even though they lost. They played Norway decently well, even though they lost that too. But they've gotten in good results entering. They've beaten Jamaica, who we just talked about. They've beaten Brazil, who we just talked about. They tied Chile, which worries me a little bit because I'm not very big on the South Americans entering this World Cup. But again, they're kind of one of those teams in that middle pack, maybe not the high elite, maybe not even the second tier, kind of with the Spains, but that middle group that has quality. And when you play a rival in the opening game, they're going to be playing with so much confidence, they're going to be so mentally locked in, not only because it's a World Cup, but you're also playing a rival, and you have this opportunity to kind of put a name to yourself in the world stage. That should give them so much confidence, and it's huge, and it'll be huge for them playing a very good England team, who I think they probably are third or fourth right there with Germany and Netherlands as teams I really like. So I mean, Scotland has this fantastic opportunity for them entering the first game to really put a stamp and shake up this World Cup.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, but it's going to be hard, when you think
Yeah.
about how good that English team is. Nikita Paris, Karen Carney, just talent all across the pitch. It's fun because I like what England's able to do right now, but it's hard for me to have confidence in them right now. England is a team that it's really hard to explain. It's just like I got a gut feeling that I don't like it, even though that like I'm kind of going against it for some other things. It might be that loss to New Zealand on Saturday going into this matchup, even though that they rested some starters and were getting bench players opportunities to get on there. But this is an interesting matchup for somebody that just did so well in the She Believes Cup, and I don't know. I can't place it, but I don't like England to do well outside the group.
All right, so you got a gut feeling that they're just once we get out of the group, they're going to blow it.
Yes.
Okay, I mean that's fair. They've had, and then the other team you got to watch out for Japan. They're a Japan who's finalist 4 years ago, champions 8 years ago. They're kind of in the transition stage, but they have some veterans. They have some good quality young players. I think what I don't like about Japan is they might not have, that kind of next gear that the teams like Netherlands, the teams like Germany, teams like USA might have those type of players. But I think, the Japan-England game is as good of a group stage game as you're going to get in the group stage for me personally. And I think those two are going to battle out for the first and second in the group.
I don't know. Japan has like a changing of the guard right now. They've got a very big gap between some of their best players and some of their worst players, and some of their older players and some of their youngest players. And it almost kind of reminds me of that United States team that was in World Cup qualifying that somehow managed to lose to Trinidad and Tobago 2-0. It's something that it's something that they have a lot of kinks in them. Japan reminds me a lot like Canada right now. And even though that Japan has, you said it right, they don't have another gear to kick it up to when they're put in trouble, and it almost puts them more on a defensive background going into all this. However, that being said, defense is not going to win you this championship. There's too many good goal scorers out there and not enough good goaltenders, and you really just have to try to outscore the other team. That's not been the focus of a lot of World Cups so far, is to to focus on the outscoring compared to stay at home and defend. And I think that's more the style that Japan wants to play given the circumstances, and I don't know if that's going to really pay off for them. I actually have Scotland ahead of Japan in this group. I got England, Scotland, Japan, and Argentina. And if this remains low scoring enough for all three, for all four teams, then you could see Japan move along as one of the better third place teams. But all that coming together, I like what Scotland's doing just too much right now for what might be the most disjointed Japanese women's team in my lifetime.
All right, well, I'm gonna stick with Japan. I got them second. I have England first. I have Japan second. I have Scotland third. Or I have Argentina fourth. I have a little more confidence in the Japanese team. I kind of have them in like that second tier behind with like a Sweden, with Spain, with Canada, that quality. I think maybe once they get in the knockout stage, it might be a little more difficult, but I think for them kicking off against Argentina is going to be huge for them, and it's going to build up their confidence too before a game against Scotland, where Scotland might be emotionally drained and physically trained and from playing a rival like England too. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Does the third place team move along in this group?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Important to know. Got a couple.
Yeah.
I've got the sheet here just to try to see what's going on and who's got teams moving along, because we'll ask that at the end of the show. Like, do we want to stick with it or kind of change things up? But I think it's important right now to take another break. We'll try to keep it going with the two groups per segment aspect of it here and move into Group E after the break. You're listening to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media.
What's up, everybody? This is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Press Row, where we talk about the biggest issues in sports with the analysts, experts, and reporters who cover them. No nonsense, hard-hitting interviews on the sports topics you're talking about. A new show comes out every single Thursday. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Press Row. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome back to Your Soccer Passport, doing a World Cup edition for the Women's World Cup. I'm Brice Burge, that's Yvonne Sanchez Carrasco. We're going to continue going down the groups and keep breaking down the information for you. Hitting Group E now, Netherlands, Canada, New Zealand, and Cameroon. This one has some teams that you expect to do well and some teams that you don't expect to do well. But for me, I got to start off with Canada. And I think that's one because Canada is a local team, especially for me being so close to the border. But this is really Sinclair's probably swan song in the World Cup unless something drastic happens. She's not the one-man force that she used to be, but she's still got a ton of talent. And this is a group that's a little awkward in itself when you look at, the lack of scoring efficiency for New Zealand and Cameroon. So for me with Canada, it's odd because you want to go out there and do a really good job and win your group and get stuck in a bad part of the bracket, or are you okay with getting second place? And I think they're just going to have to settle for second place here because I really like the Netherlands here. What is going to be the game plan for Canada in these three games to win the group in advance?
Well, against Cameroon, New Zealand, their game plan should be to score as many goals as possible. And because I think, like you kind of got me onto the Netherlands. I really enjoy the Netherlands, especially the way they're entering this World Cup. And talk about really an offensive-minded team. They are, number one, they're the defending European champions. And number two, they love scoring goals, and they are fun to watch. So I think, that Canada-New Zealand game, or that Canada-Netherlands game to win the group stage on match day 3 is going to be huge to see who wins the group. And I think this kind of reminds me a lot of the Group B group, where you have kind of two higher end teams, and then you have there's a huge gap between them and third and fourth, which I was kind of disappointed with New Zealand. Entering the World Cup with how they performed. I was expecting a little more from them. So I think this gives it a great opportunity for Canada and for Netherlands to really take advantage of kind of a weaker group.
And I think that's a big point. I mean, New Zealand is interesting because they probably have one of the most underrated defenses in all of the Women's World Cup, but nobody's talking about defense right now because it's all about scoring power. You look at the United States and what they're able to do. You look at what France is doing, Spain to different aspects, and this Netherlands team. You got Martins, you got Miedema. You just have too many great scorers and ball handlers on this Netherlands team to really kind of not shock anybody. This is the type of play that the Netherlands have that will dominate success in the tournament. For Canada, though, when they look at that kind of scenario and they're going up against Cameroon, that opening matchup, this has to be a big blowout. I think you have to make sure that you're always attacking and always pressing, just because I think you're going to have that goal differential to even have a chance in case there's a draw at the end. This New Zealand team is going to be awkward, even though they're on. They have the decent defense, and I think Canada is going to have enough to safely move on. But if you look at New Zealand right now, they just got done playing a friendly against Wales. 14 shots on target, 126 dangerous attacks, and they lost 1-0 with a goal from Wales in the 90th minute. That's rough. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've shown that they can't kick it up a notch when they get inside that dangerous scoring area. And it's frustrating because that's got to be the worst type of result for New Zealand heading into this World Cup. And they just got it. And so, the thing is that I think that if they're able to beat up on Cameroon in that last game, if they really start paying attention to how the math works, I think they'll move on out of the group just because they've got one of the more beneficial last games of the match day threes in the entire World Cup right now. And I think they'll move on. But I've ultimately got Netherlands, Canada, New Zealand, and Cameroon.
I have that order as well. And I think one of the important points to point about Canada is they are a good team, and they are kind of in that – I've been talking about a lot of tiers. So, me personally, I have like USA, Germany, England, Netherlands, and France. It's kind of like the five best, and then you have this other group of quality players like teams like Australia, Canada, Spain, Japan, and Sweden. We saw it in the CONCACAF qualifying games where when they're up against a good team, a quality, one of the elite teams like USA, they kind of struggle a little bit. So I think this is that match, and now they have another opportunity against the Netherlands where they do have this opportunity against one of the elite teams. And can they finally kind of live up to that? Can they match them in a game? I think that's kind of the big question for Canada entering this group stage. Can they match one of the elite teams in a group stage match? And from there, can they build confidence? Because I think if they lose to New Zealand or struggle, that doesn't bode well for them entering the knockout stage.
I agree. Do you think New Zealand will move along as a third place team?
Oh, just because of Cameroon, I think yes. But I mean, you've seen it against the USA. You've seen it against some other games. They struggle to kind of score goals against higher quality teams, and they struggle once the kind of wheels start falling off to really go down. Even if you don't win against Canada and Netherlands, you still have to be competitive to give yourself a chance in that Cameroon game, and that's my worry with New Zealand.
Let's jump then to the final group. Group F, USA, Chile, Sweden, and Thailand. It's almost all but certain that USA and Sweden will move along. With the offenses that both of them have, it's more of just a question of can Sweden maybe get the drop on the United States. I don't think that's going to be the case just because Sweden and USA play on match day 3. Giving up an opportunity for Thailand or Chile to kind of step up and maybe make some waves. But again, you talked about it earlier, South American teams look a little sketchy and a little unprepared heading into this matchup, even though that Chile honestly may be the class of the South American continent right now. While Thailand is always a respectable team in the Asian groups, but this is really one of their few times to face teams outside the Asian continent. They almost remind me of like a Iran from the last World Cup. They may be able to like shock some people, maybe get a really hard fought draw, or get upset in the last 5 minutes of regular time or something like that. But this is a pretty set group.
Yeah, I think it's going to be U.S. It's going to be Sweden. And you know what? I'm not as high on Thailand as you are for even like sneaking a point. I think they're going to kind of be the whipping. They're going to get whipped group stage, especially that first game against the USA. I think it'll kind of set the precedent for how the tournament might go for them, because if the USA blows them out, and the USA has possibly the best attack in the world, and if USA go out and put the foot to the pedal and go at them, that sets up Sweden to have to do the same thing to keep up with points, keep up with goals, and keep up with goal differential that second match. So I think that kind of bodes really badly for Thailand when you think about it that way. And with Chile, they might be the best team out of South America, but that's not a very good South America entering the World Cup, I don't think. And they've had some below to mixed results. They've been able to compete with some teams entering this World Cup, but other times they've been getting blown out. When you talk about Netherlands blowing them out 7-0, then you have Scotland tying them 1-1. So they've lost to Jamaica twice. They lost to Italy. So they haven't been getting wins. They've been competing with some, but they've been getting blown out. So that kind of worries me as well for Chile.
Chile, I have third, and I'm kind of flopping back and forth on whether or not they're going to make it out of the group. And this is one of the reasons why I don't necessarily like best place third teams making it into the knockout stage, is because if Chile gets blown out in their first two games, but they still go out there and beat Thailand, there's a chance that they could move on just with 3 points when you've got a whole bunch of teams that maybe have 2 draws and a single loss that don't make it out because of the point totals. And it's, I think that's kind of like the underlying message of what Chile is kind of fighting for at this point, because I like USA. They're going to score too many goals. You're going to see their starters the entire way just because Sweden's that third play or that third match day. Sweden, I think, is going to be a very solid team. Don't get me wrong in any aspect of that. But I think they do have some susceptibility in the middle field or in the back middle area, and I think that's going to give some really great opportunities for the U.S. to find good passing lanes that other teams may not be able to find. So I think they'll win the group. Sweden second, Chile third, and Thailand fourth. And I think begrudgingly I have to put in Chile as a third place team.
Oh man, no, I do not have Chile as one of those teams making it out. Yeah, they're one of the ones I feel most confident. This is kind of the group I feel most confident that there will be 2 teams out of it, because I just think Sweden kind of, again, that kind of not elite, but that second tier of quality teams that are going to be able to maybe not match the United States in goals scored against Sweden and Chile, but they're going to be able to do enough damage to kind of set up that match in the third day. And don't forget, Sweden did beat the USA in the Olympics 3 years ago. So I'm not going to call it revenge, but USA will be very aware of Sweden and entering this final group stage. So I think USA is going to be completely locked in for the whole group stage because of that upset in the Olympics 3 years ago.
All right, so you got USA, Sweden, Chile, and Thailand, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so far for third place teams that you got coming out, you've got Brazil in Group C, Scotland in Group D, and New Zealand in Group E, which means that you have to pick either Nigeria, China, or Chile to make it out. Who do you think is going to come out of that as like the third place team?
I think I'm going to go China.
I
think they're gonna blow out South. They have a better chance of blowing out South Africa if they struggle against Spain and Germany, where I think Nigeria and South Korea are gonna have a harder battle against each other, and to try to blow somebody out between the two if they struggle against France and Norway.
All right, so just to give the end of group stage rundown, both of us have France and Norway moving out of Group A. Out of Group B, we both have Spain and Germany, but flip-flopped who will win that group. You have China coming out of there as a third-place team as well. In Group C, we went pretty much the same thing. Australia and Italy 1-2, but we had actually flipped who would be the third-place team, but have both of our selections moving into the knockout stage. I have Jamaica, you have Brazil. Group D, England, Japan, and Scotland we have moving on, but have swapped Japan and Scotland for that second and third place. Group E, we both have Netherlands, Canada, and New Zealand in that order. And Group F, USA and Sweden. And then I have Chile making it out just because I think they're going to blow out Thailand more than they will, than China will blow out South Africa. That's the way it's going to break down, it looks like. So hopefully this will be a good opportunity for us, and we'll post it on social media to see how we all match up along with this. But, we've got a minute left here, Yvonne. What's your final thought about heading into this World Cup?
I think it's going to set up. I think I'm going to look for a lot of the European teams to do really strong in this World Cup, similar to the Men's World Cup a year ago, where the home field advantage of the European squads are going to bode well for them. So I look for European dominance for the most part.
I agree. We have every single European team making it out of the group, which is a big one. We also have every African team not making it out of the group, which is an interesting one. And we have mixed feelings about CONCACAF and the South American League, because I can never pronounce that acronym. All right, let's do it. Shout out, 40 seconds, go.
All you ladies, World Cup time. It's your time to shine. We're just here to fill in the news, but I mean, I'm excited for it. I know you are too. So my shout outs for all the ladies for the World Cup. Your time to shine. Go get them.
Let's do it. All right, that will do it for us this week, though, on Your Soccer Passport. I want to thank all the guys with Public House Media for their work in editing and post-production. And until next week, I'm Brice Burge. He's Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. Have a good one.